Glad to see you all here. Just waiting for my guests to arrive. Nice to see you all. Hi, everybody. Oh, I do have the Canada Council here. Okay, I'm going to go live. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Just give us a minute here to get ready. Oh, perfect. Okay,
good.
That was much easier than last time.
Much easier than last time.
We had some technical difficulties on the previous round, but we are seamless this time. Hi.
Here we are
Awesome.
again.
Thanks,
Hi
again. And thanks to everyone who's just tuning in and joining us. Looks like we've got some folks here. This is fantastic. All right. Oh yes, I'm gonna just put a little comment in to get us started, and then we'll kick this off.
Great. This one's a bit different, Nicole, than the French one because my parents are joining us on this one. So hi, Mom and Dad.
Oh, that's so nice. I know I'm already seeing some familiar faces showing up, which is just fantastic.
Yeah,
this is exciting. My parents do not have Instagram, so they never get to watch me embarrass myself on the internet. So
there you go.
Yeah. Awesome. I am just going to pin this comment. There we go. Great. Thanks everyone for being here, and thanks for your patience. And let's get her started. Hi
Great.
everyone. I'm Nicole Burisch. I'm the Assistant Curator of Contemporary Art at the National Gallery of Canada. And thanks for joining us here today for the next edition of House Blend Live, a little series of online chats we've been doing with NGC curators and our invited guests. And this fall we've been sort of reaching out across the country to chat with artists and curators and other organizations. So it's sort of within that spirit that I'm joined here today by Jennifer Cherniack, who is the agent. I have it in French here, but not in English in front of me.
I know.
Program officer in with the prizes service for the Canada Council for the Arts. Welcome, Jennifer. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And before we get started here in this virtual space, I'd like to acknowledge that we are indeed on the land and in a kind of real space, and that this land that we're on is the traditional and unceded, in fact, stolen territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. And I'm grateful to be here today on this land, tuning in from Vanier. And I know Jennifer is actually just down the road over in Lowertown.
Lowertown.
Okay. Yeah. So it's funny to sort of be online together and still in quite close proximity. But here we are. And we're here to talk today a bit about this year's Governor General's Awards in Visual and Media Arts. And excuse me. So I'll kick it off by turning things back over to Jenny and just asking if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at the Canada Council.
Sure.
And sort of maybe a little bit about what the prizes section does and what you do.
Great. Excellent. So super happy to be here, Nicole. Thanks for having me twice in one day in two different languages. So like Nicole said, my name is Jennifer Cherniack, and I'm a program officer in the prizes section at the Canada Council for the Arts. I'm from Winnipeg, and if you're from Winnipeg, you always have to tell everyone you're from Winnipeg. So I'm from Winnipeg, but I've actually lived in a whole bunch of places. I've lived in Toronto, Montreal, Syracuse, and now Ottawa. And I started at the Canada Council 7 years ago after finishing my master's degree at Concordia. And actually, Nicole, you and I were there at the same time doing different master's degrees. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm also an artist, and a lot of the folks that work at the Canada Council are also practicing artists in the various different disciplines. So I'm an artist and an arts administrator, and my background in visual arts really comes from growing up in the artist-run center world in Canada, which I think is a really important. an important aspect of where I am now and what I've done in the past. So I started off at council in the visual arts section, administering grants to individuals, to individual artists, and to organizations. And then if some of you are au courant, follow the Canada Council, you may have noticed there was a big shift in our entire model. And when we shifted to our current funding model, I found myself very, very happily in the prizes department. So I administer prizes in many different disciplines, but my specialty and main focus is really visual arts, media arts, and fine craft. Of course, the big prize that I manage is the Governor General's Awards in Visual and Media Arts. From now on, we can call it GG Arts. It's a bit shorter. We don't have a lot of time today. We have about 30 to 45 minutes, so GG Arts. And the Canada Council funds, administers, and promotes this award. And this award is really part of Council's larger system of support for visual and media artists and arts. And on that note, some of you might not be familiar with what we do at the Canada Council. So for those of you who don't know, we are Canada's public arts funder. We award grants and prizes to professional artists and arts organizations all throughout Canada, and in a wide variety of disciplines. So we support dance and theater and music and sound and deaf and disability arts and circus arts and multidisciplinary arts, and on and on. We really support a large gamut of different disciplines. Yeah. There's sort of two things I find really important to mention every time I talk about the Canada Council. It's like our tenets, like the tenets of what we do and why. And one is that we're an arm's length corporation. We're a crown corporation. We're arm's length to the government. And this really defines our relationship with the government and means that we set our own priorities and define our own policies. That's a really important aspect of what we do. And then the second tenet is that our work is largely carried out by the peer assessment process. And that really defines our relationship with the arts community. It means that we respect the artistic choices made by the applicants, and we make informed decisions by consulting and involving artists and arts professionals along the way. So the majority of funding decisions in grants and in prizes really are based on peer assessment. So the art community,
means a jury of peers are the ones that adjudicate and decide how the funding.
Exactly. Yeah. So we involve artists and arts professionals in all the different disciplines, depending on the grant or the prize, and they come together to help us make decisions. But I work in the prizes department, and that works a little bit different than the granting programs. The nature of our work is a little bit different, and the specialization of all the different prizes makes for a super interesting job. We have 38 prizes total that our team manages, and we're a petite team. We're a pretty small team, so we're very busy, but happily so. It's a great team, and it's great to work on all these different prizes. And we award over 200 prizes a year to Canadian artists and scholars in recognition of their great work. We have all different types of prizes. We do prizes that recognize outstanding careers, like GG Arts, or a prize like the Walter Carson Prize. Or we recognize great projects. We celebrate great projects like GG Books, which is another Governor General's award that awards important pieces of literature, whether that be poetry or fiction. And we also have GG Medals in Architecture, which is a prize given to a great build, a great project, a great building, house, center, sports center even. And we also have prizes that are to fund projects that haven't happened yet, like exceptional projects. So that would be like Prix de Rome or the Chalmers Fund. Like our prizes cover the gamut. We have prizes for visual artists, media artists, composers, scientists even. So it's a really interesting world to work in. And I always love telling people this. We have something called the Musical Instrument Bank, where cellists and violinists can audition to win the loan. They can basically, they're given an instrument for 3 years to use for touring and for presentations. And that's based on an audition. And what I love telling about this is, because I'm flabbergasted by this number, but we have a cello that's worth $14 million that someone could play. No pressure.
Wow. And they get to take it home with them and take it on tour and and play it. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear this kind of bigger description too, because I think like most people, at least in the arts world, my interaction with council has largely been sort of filling out many grant applications or the sort of granting
Me
side of
too.
things. But to sort of get a bigger picture of what the Canada Council does, or I think the Art Bank is another project that folks are familiar with. But it's nice to have this sort of bigger sense of what everything you do in the prizes department. Yeah, like it's bigger than just grants. Yeah. Oh, we have some questions rolling in, and I forgot to mention we'll save questions. We'll save questions for the end, unless we have if we see them and pick them up right away. But yeah, that's great. We already have some people, some curious folks here.
Great.
Sorry, but Jenny, I'll let you finish. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I'm seeing people are asking where we find this information. It's all on our website. And yeah, I'm naming prizes like Walter Carson and medals and all this sort of stuff. All the information's there. And there are people on the other end. There are people that work, well, we used to work in a building downtown, but now we're at home. And we're super happy to answer any questions people may have. But quickly, I do want to say one really special part of prizes, and it's a really big part of our mandate, is actually the connection to the public. So it's really about celebrating and sharing these great achievements with the public, with the rest of Canada, and not just the arts community. And we do that in tons of different ways. So we have big promotional campaigns. We do a lot of partnerships with festivals and other institutions. Like in the past, we've worked with the National Gallery of Canada. This year, we're working with the Art Gallery of Alberta. And we do prize presentations and we do ceremonies as well. I really think that prizes are it's a real feel-good opportunity to really celebrate these amazing people that have contributed so much to the arts and sciences as well with some of our prizes.
And sciences too, which is interesting. Yeah. And I can say from personal experience that I got to work with you on the 2018 GG Arts Awards and the exhibition when it was at the National Gallery. And I got to attend the ceremony at Rideau Hall, which just, I think we're saying not a dry eye in the house. It was really moving to see what it was like for those artists to be recognized in that way. And again, like you were saying, to really celebrate the work that exceptional artists have done and to celebrate those exceptional careers, and to bring the public's attention to those careers and practices as well. There's really something. I was super moved at the ceremony for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of that kind of, that celebratory aspect, I mean, this is, if you could tell us a little bit about maybe the nitty gritty of the prize before we start talking about this year's winners. So maybe just a little bit about the structure and the history of the prize too. Yeah,
sure. Yeah. I mean, the title gives you some indicator that it's about visual arts and media arts. But it has an interesting history and a really important place in Canada in terms of sort of how important and prestigious it is. I've been lucky enough to work on these prizes since 2016. Sometimes I'm still gobsmacked that I get this opportunity. It's a big responsibility and I take it very seriously. But so GG Arts are really Canada's foremost distinction for excellence in visual and media arts. And fine craft, obviously, as well. And it's really considered to be the highest honor within contemporary art in Canada. So these prizes recognize career achievement and artistic excellence and honor artists and arts practitioners for their commitment and impact to the milieu. So it's also that impact that's really important as well. It's the impact of the work, but it's often the impact of that artist sort of as a whole person and their contribution. So each year we award up to 8 prizes. 6 go for artistic achievement, either to visual or media artists, both visual and media artists. We have 1 prize for fine craft artists, which is called the Sadie Brothman Award. And then we also have 1 more prize for outstanding contribution. And these are really for folks kind of behind the scenes. So that's whether they be volunteers or professionals. This is really people who are contributing to sort of the whole structure of visual and media and fine craft art. So we're looking at curators, writers, policymakers, philanthropists, that kind of thing. So kind of the behind the scenes folks. These awards, the award winners all receive a medallion. It's very beautiful. They're very heavy, and $25,000, and that is presented to them at a ceremony at Rideau Hall. And also, their work is promoted through an exhibition at a major institution in Canada. So in the past, it's been at the National Gallery. 1 year it was at the Winnipeg Art Gallery, and this year it's in Edmonton at the Art Gallery of Alberta, which is nice to be able to get it out into the world. And also we commission filmmakers to create video portraits of these artists, and that's used in our promotional campaign.
One of the best parts, I think, you get to do these little video portraits and really get to dive into people's practices. Those are always a real treat when they come out, I find.
Totally. And what I love about that is we actually commission other artists to do it. So sometimes they're really experimental. You can really see the collaboration between the artist, like the winner, and then the filmmaker. And they're always super different. And we sort of go carte blanche. We say, make a film about this person, work together. We hope for the best. And it's almost always just a great piece of art. So these awards have been around for now 21 years. They were created in 1999, so back in the 90s, the late 90s, through a partnership with the Canada Council of the Arts and the then Governor General Romeo Leblanc. So council funds, administers, and promotes these awards. But yes, it was created through a partnership with the Governor General. And one thing that's really interesting is there's a prize that used to happen outside of the GG Arts called the Sadie Brothman Award, which is a fine craft prize. It's a prize for fine craft artists, glass blowers, metal workers, fiber artists, that kind of stuff. And in 2005, it was actually brought into the fold. And is now part of the GG Arts group, sort of that package. And that's really thanks to a donation by the Samuel and Sadie Brothman Foundation that prize exists. And it's a huge honor, same thing, huge honor in the fine craft community. Yeah.
We had a question just roll in about who is financing these prizes. So I think we've covered that. It's the council that covers most of the, all of the 8 prizes,
these
all
ones,
of them, except for the Sadie Brothman, which comes from the Brothman family.
And other prizes, and with other prizes, it's very dependent because a lot of them are prizes with donors or endowments, and some are also funded through the Canada Council. Yeah.
Right on. Thanks.
I see another big question, but I think we can get into that a little bit later.
Yeah. We'll of course we'll talk about COVID. Don't worry, it's coming. Perhaps before we talk about that, now we're going to do the fun part, which is to talk a little bit about this year's winners, the 2020 GG Arts winners. And like you'd mentioned, the exhibition is being held this year at the Art Gallery of Alberta. And they've been, it just opened, and they've been generous enough to share with us some of the images of the artworks as installed. And so we're going to try and do like a mini, think of this as the mini sneak preview. We're on Instagram. There's some limitations to what we can do with the platform, but we're going to show a couple images, and Jenny's going to give us a little bit of an overview of each of the winners in their practice. So we hope this will give you it's like the little teaser, so that you'll be interested in maybe going to go check out the videos or the website to get more information about the laureates this year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'll let Jenny, I'm going to just set it up to show images here, and then I'll let Jenny talk about some of the
Great. Excellent. So a few things. One, I just need to immediately extend my complete gratitude to Catherine Claxton, who is the director and head curator at the AGA, and her team. They've been incredible to work with. This is not the year that was planned. We had a lot of really amazing things planned. We're all taking it in stride because it's all we can do. But my goodness, is this exhibition ever? It's incredible. It's a really, I know, Nicole, we received the images at the same time, and we both kind of wrote each other like, Oh my goodness, this is some incredible show. Um, so I will try and do justice to these amazing artists and this amazing exhibition. But what I can hope is that I can give people a taste. And please go onto the website, GG Arts website. Please go to the Art Gallery of Alberta. And also there is public programming that will be happening. So you can learn more about these artists as well. Yeah. So I did also want to mention that we'll talk a little bit about the process, the process of how these winners come to be, which is nomination process. But I also just really wanted to quickly mention, because sometimes this comes up, is that this prize is also peer assessed. So there's a peer assessment process that happens, and it's really the community that picks these winners. Okay, so I'm gonna talk a little bit about the artists now. And I'm going to start with a quote that I found that's part of the didactic panel at the AGA. And it's from Ken Lum, who's one of the winners. And I think that he really sums up what these winners are about. So here I go. For too long, there has been so much to say through art and so little diversity of content addressed, especially regarding subjugated experiences marked by difference. Thankfully, that is changing for the better. But that was not the case for much of my time as an artist. The limits of what I was allowed to say, the unspoken rules by which I had to oblige, often spurred my thinking about art as a practice of resistance. And I have to say, this is a group of, these are a group of people that are resisting, and they're rule breakers and they're challengers of dominant narratives, questioners of the way in which art is produced, disseminated, and captured. Their stories and their work are all really different. There's a great variety of media and stories and backgrounds, but I really believe that they share this common framework as art as a practice of resistance and change. We're going to start with Zayn of Virgi, and I think you'll put her image up. So Zayn of Virgi has won the Outstanding Contribution Award. And what's amazing about Zainab is I'm not sure I've met anyone who has worn and continues to wear as many hats as Zayn of Virgi. She's a cultural administrator. She's an arts advocate. She's an art critic. She's an art center and gallery director. And she's an artist as well. And what's great, and you'll see, is that she's actually using art to talk about policy and advocacy. And I think that's just amazing. So Zainab has been a huge part of really, really massive shifts in cultural policy in Canada. Virgi fervently believes that art is a public good. And I love that term, and it's a term that really resonates with me and that she talks about a lot. And she is really an advocate for artists and cultural workers. She's been at the forefront in the advocacy for a national basic income strategy in relation to artists and cultural workers. And this is really, really important now for COVID. It's a really, really urgent need. And it's something that she has really been part of, and she's really led. And so what's amazing about her is that she made new work to talk about these things for this show. So we see here, and again, apologies, like it's a tiny little screen, but this is a work called Status of the Artist. And this work really highlights these critical issues around labor and artists. And Zainab is also showing a work called Amnesia, and it's an installation that brings in the Massey Report. And for those of you who don't know what the Massey Report is, it's actually the original cultural policy document, and it's in the exhibition space. And this document is like really the foundation of, the Canada Council, the National Gallery. It's really sort of one of the biggest of everything in Canada. Yeah, about sort of like national identity in Canada. So Zainab's work also includes, you can actually scan a QR code, and then it will bring you to a podcast where she is critically addressing this report and sort of how it's still really relevant in today's context. I love that Zainab made artwork to communicate cultural policy and advocacy. And it again speaks to the multitude of hats that Zainab continues to wear so well.
Yeah, and like that, I think often with the winners for this Outstanding Contribution Awards, that does recognize, again, not just artistic practice, but also the kind of labor behind the scenes,
Exactly.
and the kind of maybe less glamorous aspects like policy and advocacy and activism that can be such an important part of the work we do. Yeah.
Exactly. And I was so thrilled that the committee was just like, this is such important work, and it's difficult work. And it's not, it's not shiny work. It's hard. It's hard work. So
Yeah,
thank you, Zainab, for doing the
very
hard work.
high. Yeah.
Next up, we have Ken Lum. And I think a lot of Canadians are familiar with the work of Ken Lum. He's whom I quoted earlier. So the AGA is showing a number of his works, including these juxtapositions. He's very well known for these photo pieces where it's a photo and text, this sort of juxtaposition. And I immediately, when I saw the documentation, I immediately thought of his piece, Melly Shum Hates Her Job. Nicole, you are familiar with this work?
This work, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So Melly Shum Hates Her Job has been in the news lately because the former Wit de With Center for Contemporary Art, which is in Rotterdam, is officially going to change its name to Kunstinstituut. Am I saying it right? I'm missing a T in there somewhere.
Kunstinstituut, yeah.
Perfect. Kunstinstituut Melly, which is inspired, of course, by Ken Lum's piece that was featured. That was actually featured in the inaugural exhibition of the center. And it's actually like on the facade of the building. And I guess after the show was over, they tried to take it down, and the people of Rotterdam protested, and
Like,
the center got, and the center got phone calls and complaints to put the work back up. And ever since, the work has stayed put. It's right on the facade of the building. So Melly Shum, this woman you see here. Oh, sorry, you don't see here. You'll have to look it up. Everyone, look it up. Yeah, yeah. Melly Shum. That's not Melly Shum. Please look up this work. But this woman, this character, has not only become part of the fabric of the institution and the city of Rotterdam, but I read somewhere that she represents. She is one for all those who hate their jobs. And to me, really, which I love, and I don't hate my job, I love it, but I think it's important to have this kind of icon of someone who's living through that daily grind of kind of trying to survive under power structures and capitalism. So Melly Shum is iconic, and to me, this is such a testament to the power of art.
Yeah, absolutely. Or and in the case of the former Wit de Wit, that the gesture there too was about getting rid of the institution's former name that has all these colonial underpinnings. Like it's a name that comes with a kind of colonialist history and violence, and replacing it with, again, a feminized, racialized working class person, like the name of this figure from Ken's work. And like you see here, there's this sort of pairing of image and text, where the text is kind of speaking in the voice of the person being depicted, or there's this kind of captioning that happens in these. So I think it's a fantastic move on the part of the now Kunstinstituut Melly. Yeah.
Yeah. It's so great. And actually, when you Google the center, it like when you type in the old name, it already comes up with Melly as the name. Yeah. Okay. Next up, we have Anna Torma. And perfect, great. And Anna Torma is the winner of the Sadie Brockman Award. This is all embroidery. She's a textile artist. And Nicole, I know that you've been following her work for some time already. Yeah,
I got to. She has an exhibition up right now at the Textile Museum of Canada in Toronto, and I was fortunate enough to be able to go visit, and would encourage others to do so as well.
Yeah, it's great. Anna's work is so incredible. I think even just in this tiny screen, you can see there is so much going on in this. Her work is complex, it's layered, like literally and also metaphorically, and it's totally maximalist in its aesthetic. And her work feels really radical to me, in the way that it tells stories, the way that it's produced. And Anna's lived experience of immigration to Canada from Hungary, and the way she holds space for both places and stories in her work is really powerful to me. I also think, and I'm not a total expert in the actual techniques of embroidery, but I feel like this kind of work kind of breaks the rules of what you're supposed to do in terms of like a pattern and within embroidery. And also what's great is that she has some works where you can look at it in the front and it's all clean, and then you actually get to see the back of it, which is so beautiful as well. Yeah.
Yeah, those traces of process I think are really there's a work like that in Toronto as well. That's just fantastic.
Yeah. And Anna is a very quiet but a very mighty force. And she made new work for this show. So again, if you're in Edmonton, I can't be there, please go see this work. Please go see this exhibition. There's just amazing work in it. Okay. So next up we have Deanna Bowen, and her work, as it comes, there we go. Her work is also really, really complex, really, really layered, and super maximalist as well in its approach, but in a totally different way. So her nominator was Vera Frankel, who actually is a former GG Arts winner. And she talks about how Deanna's work is almost a forensic practice. And her work is really an investigation into how racism and prejudice is embedded in the fabric of her own family history, but also as well as Canadian culture. So for the AGA exhibition, Deanna is showing a modified version of the work God of Gods, a Canadian play, which was a project commissioned for Harthouse at the University of Toronto. And this work revisits the play God of Gods that was written by Carol Aikens, who is considered to be the founder of the first national theatre in Canada. And this work is really, really looking at the foundations of Canadian cultural identity as shaped by nationalist, white, and settler ideals, and maps how colonial ideas about Indigenous cultures and cultural production were mobilized to create this so-called national aesthetic. And what I think is really powerful is that Zainab touches on this with the Massey Report, and then Deanna touches on it with her work about this play. So I love the connection between these two artists, and I love that they're bringing these conversations into institutions and spaces that have a history with these types of identities. And Nicole, you and I have talked about this before, but I think it's worth mentioning that we both work at institutions that share this common history. Like the Massey Report was a huge part of the foundation of all art and arts and culture in Canada, and institutions are reckoning with, and other institutions as well. And I really think that we're really fortunate to be able to talk about this type of work within this context.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have this space where artists can be critical of those histories, of colonialist histories and of white supremacist histories in the context of, and that there's some productive tension, sometimes perhaps uncomfortable even of doing that work, but that it's, this is important work and it comes through it in what Deanna is doing.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And even in talking with Deanna and Zainab, they were telling me about this, and I was like, yes, this is great. I'm really thrilled that these works are here. Yeah. Next up, we have Jorge Lozano Lorza, and he's another super game-changing artist. He was nominated by Mike Holboom, who is another GG Arts winner of years past. I was saying to Nicole in the French session that there's this really beautiful pay it forward of winners that are who have won, but then also want to really honor people in their community. Yeah. So Mike Holboom really aptly describes Jorge's impact and contribution to film and video. He says, Lozano was ahead of his time and pointed the way for future generations of media artists, finding new forms to disrupt and make visible the unmarked and invisible privileges of whiteness. Along the way, he experimented self-reflexivity with forms in order to address power relations that shape the production, reception, and mediation of race representations. And here you see his video installation called Watch My Back. And it's really a testament to how involved Jorge is with community and grassroots organizations and grassroots movements. And this is work that was made through his work with youth at risk from marginalized neighborhoods. And it's really a reflection on the criminal justice system and its treatment of racialized youth, which again is just like such an urgent conversation to be had right now. Next up, we have Michael Fernandez, which I always say, like, he kind of defies and evades description. And Michael's life and work are, I'm not sure, like they're completely interchangeable. And he definitely breaks all the rules of the contemporary art game. I think that that game, and he's just such a genuine artist living, like just really living his best life and making amazing work. So his nominator, Craig Leonard, talks about how his performances and exhibitions are aesthetically uncompromising. And I love that word for Michael and his work, like this idea of uncompromising. And he's going to do what he feels is the right thing and what he feels is appropriate for what he's talking about. And Michael also loves the idea of, like, there's a lot of serious play in his work. He also is the longest standing teacher at NASCAD in Halifax. And he's inspired generations of artists and well-known artists as well. Often will reference the impact that Michael's had on their career and on their life. And Michael talks about, this great quote from him. He says, "Success is doing what you want to do." I feel like we could all take a page from Michael here. And about his work at the show, I haven't seen it because, again, this is another artist making new work for this context. But it's a video installation piece, and it's called "Don't Let the Old Man In." And I feel like that's very much in keeping with what I know and what I love about Michael Fernandez. Next, we have Dana Claxton, who was nominated by Or Gallery in Vancouver. And curator, director Denise Ryder calls her a restless artist. And this really resonated with me because I didn't know this before the nomination process, before her nomination came in, but apparently she was a poet before turning to these types of, like the type of photo and video work that she's done. So I love that she's just moved to me so beautifully and seamlessly through all these different media. I also find that her work is restless in terms of confronting sort of the commercialized commodity culture of entertainment as connected to the stereotyping and marginalization of Indigenous voices and bodies. So there's a nice connection here as well with Deanna Bowen's work that is also looking at these stereotypes of Indigenous bodies and peoples. So at the AGA, Dana is showing her LED fireboxes and a wind box piece. And what we see here is her headdress piece, which are the fireboxes. So what I love about this piece is that these are works that are composed of, these are portraits of women that Dana has, that she knows and that she has asked them to sit for her for these portraits. So I love this sort of collaborative back and forth because they also they brought their own headdresses and their own materials to it as well, which is great. And in the text about the work headdress, Dana talks about how the war bonnet, or the headdress as some people call it, are generally given to people who are doing good work for their communities. So there's something so beautiful about Dana asking these women to sit for her and photograph them in these headdresses and kind of honoring the good that they've done in their own communities.
Yeah,
there's something
Indigenous women too, yeah?
Indigenous women, absolutely,
Indigenous
yeah.
artists, yeah.
There's a generosity there that I think is really touching.
Yeah. These were in, folks may recognize these two from the Toronto Biennial. They were kind of the opening works in one of the main exhibition spaces there last year, which is where I saw them. And yeah, it was entirely sort of bowled over by them. It took up a whole wall, and the scale, again, you'll forgive us for the teeny tiny Instagram screen, but they're quite
Yes.
large. I remember being really impacted by the kind of size of them as well, and the way they were sort of using the space of the gallery there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. Again, if you're in Edmonton, please go see these works. Tell me
Yeah.
about them. And finally, we have one more artist to talk about, and that's Ruth Cut Hand. And Ruth Cut Hand is equally a resistor. She resists dominant narratives. She resists injustice. She resists the constraints of being an artist. Um, and what I find particularly pertinent to me is that Ruth is a mother, and that was written in her nomination, like in her nomination statement by her nominators. She's a mother, she's an artist, among many other things, and is speaking as a mother and an artist. You don't see that many role models of women who are able to be mothers and artists at the same time. So I find Ruth really inspirational in that way. And to boot, Ruth Cut Hand's daughter is Thurza Cut Hand, who is like a really also an amazing artist in her own regard. So I love that there's these cut hands out in the world, this mother-daughter artist duo. It's super inspirational. So Ruth was nominated by a number of people. And that's something I should mention is that artists and arts professionals can nominate artists and arts professionals for these awards, but you can do it in a group. So this group was Jen Budney, Michelle Lavallee, and Jake Moore. And they position Ruth's work as having an anti-aesthetic stance. And her work, so Ruth's work is all about viruses and bacteria and disease. And yes, that's a pretty anti-aesthetic subject. Obviously there's an ugliness to all those things. And again, living through a pandemic right now, it's very felt. But I don't think I can call her work anti-aesthetic when I see how beautiful these subjects are rendered. So she uses beads. She does bead work. And the work that you're seeing here is called Boil Water Advisory. And to me, I find this to be just the most powerful piece. So what it is that it is a depiction of water glasses, you can see, and there's a baby bottle as well, which is, unfortunately, you can't see it in this picture, but there's a baby bottle in it, and the baby bottle is full of water with viruses, like rendered with beads. Yeah. So it's really like, it's really poignant, and it's really troubling, and it demands the attention that should get, because that should not be happening in Canada or anywhere in the world.
Lack of potable, the address of the lack of potable drinking water in First Nations communities. And I hadn't seen these before. I'm more familiar with her the works of beaded viruses, the sort of round beadwork depictions of different viruses. And that idea of the anti-aesthetic is really interesting, because the works themselves are so seductive and are just like materially rich and beautiful. So you're sort of drawn in by the materials and by her. I mean, she's a total master of bead stitching. And then kind of confronted by the kind of darker or more difficult subject matter. I think these are really powerful too. Yes, everyone should go see the show. That's what we're
yes,
encouraging.
Please.
That's great. Well, thanks for the little tour, Jenny. This is it's been nice to see all of these. We've had a question just come in about someone asking, how can we participate in art shows? A Bangladeshi artist from Toronto. Without maybe knowing exactly which exhibitions or what your practice looks like, I mean, we're both with organizations that I know the Canada Council does have some grants for artists who would encourage you to look at some of those to support your practice. And to also look for, there's calls for submissions that often come out through organizations that look at ARCA, artist-run centers, to check out local galleries in your city and see which ones are showing work that you like. That's often a tip I will give to artists, is to go, to find spaces that you identify with and to talk to folks there about about exhibitions. Yeah, that's sorry, it's totally off topic. But take that one as it comes in.
Yeah, great.
Because it's a great question.
Yeah.
Well, and then so that's great. We've had our little tour, and I think too, it's so nice to hear you speak about kind of bring forward some of the words of the nominators too, because that's such an important part of the process for the prize. And that was something that really struck me when I got to work on that exhibition, and I think I said 2018, but I think it was actually 2019. But the way that nomination process speaks to the communities that kind of surround each winner, and often what the letters would speak to, or the quotes from the nominators would mention, is it wasn't just the artist's practice, but it would also be their involvement in things like, they're sitting on boards, or they're teaching at the local art college, or they're involved with artist-run communities. So I think that to me, that was really striking to sort of understand, again, that the community of people who are supporting and nominating and recognizing that artistic practice, it's not just making art, it's often being really embedded in a community. That was really moving and striking for me when I was sort of a little closer to the awards that year. So I wonder if you could talk a bit for briefly more about the role of the nominators, and then we'll open it up.
Absolutely, yeah. Yep. I just saw someone came in late. So we're talking about the Governor General Awards in Visual and Media Arts, which are administered and funded and promoted by the Canada Council, which is me today. So yes, this is what makes this prize so special, is the nomination process. So what happens is artists and arts administrators, and that could include art galleries and museums as well, or even educational departments, can put forward a name of an artist for this award. And so what happens is we get a nomination package, and that will include images or video or audio. It might include interviews, publications, a CV. But the most important document in my mind, or one of the most important documents, is the nomination statement. And that is really where the nominators have an opportunity to speak about the impact and the importance and the merit of this artist. People often call and say, like, oh, do you have any advice? And I always say, like, it's kind of like a love letter. No. Write it like you're writing a love letter to someone. And I really encourage people to be passionate about it, because one can be very passionate in grant writing. I've attempted it myself.
I've written passionate grants,
and I'm always jazzed when I get really passionate grants. But this is a really different context. So in a grant, you're trying to sort out the logistics. You're trying to make an argument about the relevance and the feasibility and, all this sort of stuff. But this is a totally different circumstance. And I would say this isn't even, the nomination statement shouldn't just be recapping, like, look how great they are. Look at they showed in Paris or in Tokyo or whatever. Like that CV, that's already there in their CV. So this is really an opportunity for the nominators to talk about the work, first and foremost, what it means, and how that work and that artist has impacted the people and communities around them. Oh, your dog's getting excited about this.
He's like, yes, nominate
everyone. So I encourage nominators to be passionate, and as I said in the French one, where I also teared up talking about Ruth Cut Hand's work, I've often read ones that I've totally gotten really emotional. Just because people you really see the impact that these artists have had on their communities and in Canadian art and the history of Canadian art and Canada.
Yeah, that's been my experience too. So seeing often people that I had either studied under or looked up to, or mentors of mine, being recognized in that way, it's felt really, really important for me, especially I think when I was an emerging artist and curator too, to see to sort of see how people's careers have unfolded in the communities that they belong to.
Totally, yeah. And one thing I will say is that I just give a hats off to those who have their name put in the hat, like their hat in the ring, like put their name forward, and for those who are nominating, because it's emotional, and I get that. it feels scary, and it feels very vulnerable to put yourself or to put someone in this competition. And everyone is really like everyone, like most of the people that are nominated are so deserving of this award. We have an incredible breadth of artists in Canada doing amazing things. So it's really, really competitive. And what I often will tell people, and I really want to stress this here, is that if you nominate someone, or if you're nominated and you don't win, try again. It might not be the right moment. It might, right? And that doesn't mean that there's not enough awards for the great art, all the great artists in Canada, but a lot of the winners that we have, their names were put forward more than once. So I really just encourage to do that. And even the act of nominating someone, I think, is a really big honor.
Yeah, totally.
To that,
well, on that note, I would like to extend my sincere congratulations to all the winners, the 2020 winners. It's a really important honor, and to congratulations to you and your and your jury too for doing a great job of putting this all together. If we have any questions rolling in, we'll probably try and wrap up soon here. We've got a bit over time, but there's so much great art to talk about. So if there are any questions, now's your chance.
And someone had a question about how prizes is being affected by the pandemic. The answer is absolutely it is. Our prizes have been affected greatly. And I would say less so in terms of the actual administration of the prize, but it's really the part afterwards, which is the celebration. So, it was really, really hard for me to accept that this year, the plans that we had for the big celebration in Edmonton, Her Excellency was going to come to Edmonton and do this amazing ceremony. We had this amazing schedule of events, and we're stuck in our homes, right? So that's been really hard for me to accept. I await a day in which we can all meet together and celebrate. I got to stay optimistic about that. But I'm just really, really glad that the exhibition was able to happen. And it's such it's a testament to these artists and their great work.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, we're finding other ways to celebrate. We're doing this, and there's public programming happening at the AGA. So like I said before, we're encouraging, if you're in Edmonton, to go check out the exhibition. If you're not, you can have a look at some of the fantastic videos that are on the Canada Council's website. Like I said, that's always one of my favorite parts of this award. And we're also gonna, again, thanks to the AGA and to for sharing the images and for supplying all those. And I was going to shout out too that tonight the Stonecroft Foundation, which does a lecture series, an annual lecture, the artist this year is Ken Lum. So if you want to know more about Ken and his practice, there's information to register for a Zoom seminar. That's tonight at 6 o'clock, and he'll be speaking with my dear colleague, José Drouin-Brisebois. So there's lots of opportunities to kind of delve in and get to know these practices a little bit more. We did have a question come in.
Great,
would you consider a retrospective of the Gigi's Award winners?
Yes.
How many are there, Jenny? Let's start there. How many of the winners are there?
I got to get my Excel sheet out where I keep all the tabulations. I think there's 189, maybe 100 and something. There's 8 per year for the past 21 years.
Right.
But also sometimes there's duos. Sometimes we have duos. I wonder if I can find, I feel like I can't get these numbers quick enough here. But, no, I can. Okay. So
this is say there's lots. Is it possible to do a retrospective of all
170? 170, not including. So we've talked a lot about this because as we come on milestone years, like maybe the 25th anniversary, it's something that we've definitely considered, or maybe not an exhibition in one place, but some sort of traveling exhibition or some sort of publication or some sort of space where we can really celebrate all of the winners, looking back at this award, kind of the history of this award and the different winners. Great question.
That is a great question. And I mean, I guess another thing I've maybe noticed too is that I think often, or not maybe that, maybe I'm making this up, but I mean, it certainly happened a couple years ago that after artists are recognized with the Governor General's Award, like there will be kind of more attention paid to their practice. Like Marlene
Yeah.
Traits, for example, had a big retrospective exhibition that kind of happened, I think, the year after she, and sometimes they're happening at the same time.
Same
like
time.
Anna
Sometimes
Torma and
it's
the
just
exhibition.
great luck. Like
Yeah,
Anna
it's
Torma.
luck. Yeah, and
Yeah.
other times I think maybe sometimes receiving the award is a good prompt for the art world to kind of, the Canadian art world to say, oh yeah, right, this is someone who's really important. Maybe it is
Yeah.
time to do a retrospective. Maybe it is time to gather that artists work together and have a really comprehensive survey of their practice. So yeah, but I would love to see if something comes out of a sort of bigger retrospective, or yeah, something to look back at the history of the award, because it's, yeah, I think it's had a major impact on artists and also the kind of scene in general. So
Yeah. And I always say that like this is part of making Canadian art history. Like
yeah,
they're part of they're part of that canon. I don't love that word, but that part of that conversation of our history, which is great.
yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, thanks to everyone who tuned in, and thanks for
Yeah, thank you.
the questions and love. We're getting lots of thumbs up and happy
Yeah.
faces and
Great.
and positive comments about the artist's work and hearts and all these things. So thank you all for being here, and thanks Jenny for your generous time and descriptions and yeah, sharing all this information with us.
I don't know if you could tell that I'm sort of passionate about what I do, but yeah, I love talking about this prize, and I what a special group of artists. So I love to talk about their work, and if I had like a full day lecture I could do about them, that would be great. That might not even be enough time. But yeah, so I really encourage people to look at these artists, have a look at the prize, the history of it, some of the names. Also have a look at the prize and go, who's not on this? Maybe I should nominate someone. I really, really encourage people who are working professional in the arts to consider nominating someone and being part of this process.
Yeah, that's great. All right. Well, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again soon. And yeah, tune in for the talk tonight or for the next House Blend in another couple of weeks, I think.
Great. Thanks so much, Nicole.
Great.
It's
Thanks,
great to see
Jennifer.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.